Hi, welcome to Laura's View and Tarot 2. I am so glad you're here. Today's date is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. In this video, we're going to ask a question about a policy and protections that may be going away for companies that create protocols, medicinal protocols. The I'm not speaking in directly about anything to do with those um, protocols themselves, but simply about the protections that are being afforded to the manufacturers of those. Back in 1986, during the Reagan administration, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was enacted and passed, and its intent was to uh, minimize the risk for manufacturers and healthcare providers of providing those protocols to people. That was the intent, was to keep a shortage from happening, and or the stated intent. What actually ended up happening was in 1986 there were a total of 11 childhood immunizations that were required, and by 2017, several decades after that uh, protections was passed, the number had jumped to 53, and it's even higher today. Well, the protections increased during the pandemic when the PREP Act was passed, and there is a move to have that element of the protections removed. Earlier this month, Thomas Massie from Kentucky introduced the PREP Repeal Act, and it is designed to remove the protections that were provided for the emergency youth authorization use and of the products during the pandemic. Now, that won't take away the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, but it would create a wedge. And if it could be proven, and it will be an uphill battle because these manufacturers have budgets in the trillions to influence and control narratives. So it's an uphill battle. But if that act is repealed and it is determined that there was deliberate misrepresentation of um, effects, ingredients, etc., there's going to be some liability regardless that could be happening to those companies. Now, I'm all for personal responsibility, and I don't think there's hardly ever a situation where someone should have a get out of jail free card, a no concern about liability or consequences. I just don't think that happens very much when or should happen very much. When I was teaching, it was recommended I maintain a $1 million liability policy just because we're in a litigious society. And I'm sure that firefighters and policemen and others who also are encouraged to carry liability insurance would agree that it's something that freedom from liability is just it's so easily abused. And in this case, there may be some merit to that concern. So I didn't want to ask in this video today if Thomas Massie's legislation is going to pass. This Thomas Massie has, over the course of his career, proposed 64 pieces of legislation, and only 2 of those have been passed into law. So his track record isn't very good. But what helps his cause in this case is the fact that the RFK Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary for the United States, has also shown support for this bill, for this measure. So that is kind of a powerful, on the plus column for this happening. But what I'd like to look at more important is just the global issue of liability protections. Is that something that we can anticipate going away and having some accountability options that aren't currently available to us restored to us? So that's what I'd like to ask in this video, if that's going to happen. To ask that question, I'm going to switch the camera, work with the cards, and we'll find out together if we're at the end of an era, and an era that probably should have ended decades sooner. But let's find out what the universe wants us to know. With the recent proposed legislation of the PREP Repeal Act by Thomas Massie, which was endorsed by RFK Jr., are we seeing the end of an era of having that blanket immunity, almost total immunity from fear of liability for manufacturers of inoculations that can be inserted into humans of all ages? So is that coming to an end? And I'd like additional insights and information if available. So let's see what the universe wants us to know. But there is a yes or no element to this question. Okay, we have the 10 of Pentacles, the 9 of Wands, the 3 of Cups, King of Swords, 9 of Cups, the Hierophant, and the 9 of Pentacles. So we have got 1, 2, 3 nines showing up in this read. That is statistically significant. And then there's some other good information in the cards already, and I will pull 2 more cards to see if there's additional layers of information that should be shared with us at this time. Okay, here's what I'm getting from the cards intuitively, and then we'll look at some elements in the cards that lead me to say that. First of all, we are coming to the end of the era where that blanket protection was extended to those manufacturers. That is coming to an end. And the other thing that's happening with the, especially with all the nines showing up here, is that we're in for some change, that it's kind of the end of an era. Nines indicate by themselves signally kind of the end of an era. You're at the end of the road, end of a situation. So that's kind of confirming to see there. Now, let's look a little more closely at the elements of the cards. The 10, the situation was indicated with the 10 of Pentacles, which is a celebration card and one where the well-being and celebration extends to all ages and stages of life, animal as well as human. And I know our animal friends have had issues with some of the protocols that are required of them too. So I'm glad to see the universe is saying their negative impact is coming to an end. You know, those forced negative items. The 9 of Pentacles clarifies that a little more, just saying end of an era, guys. We got the 10, we got the 9, end of an era. It is end of an era for that. And in the recent past, we had the 3 of Cups, which indicates, I think, the celebration that the those big corporations had, that they could force those protocols on people without fear of consequences, and maybe got a little slipshod and greedy. Maybe, you think? And yeah, the white hats, it's time. It's a timely topic that's not going to go away. Okay. Now let's look at the near future because that's when it gets interesting. I'm interested to see what those final 2 cards are going to be. Again, this 9 here says, you know, in the near future, we're going to be really a lot happier with both the ingredients, the efficacy, and what is offered. And I think a lot of the requirements for those things are going to be going to the wayside too. So there we go. In fact, I was just reading today that there's been an ingredient removed from the childhood protocols. So that's wonderful to hear about. The Hierophant says that, you know, if we were thinking that those are going to be abolished, it's not. There is still going to be people that trust a traditional or what they think is modern medicine and want it, and it's going to still be available. But again, that forced participation is the element that's definitely going to be going to the wayside, as well as the blanket immunity, the liability immunity, is going to be much, much reduced. And ultimately, we're going to be happy with that. Now, let's get two more cards like I've been saying I'll get. Okay, we got the Six of Wands and the Three of Swords. Okay. It's funny that these two come out together. Okay, now what we're looking at is the near future. What can we expect? What are we looking at? First of all, victory. So there is going to be that repeal. It is. The lies, however, about what happened during this time from 1986 on and to what was recommended and what was in them, um, they're still not going to be, it's going to be a dig for the truth. But the important element is to know that those protections are going away, which means the ingredients and efficacy are going to be increased, as well as what's going to be reduced is the requirement to participate in those. So that's good. If people of their free will want to put something, trust a protocol or put it in their body, that's their prerogative. But we're going to have a reduction of that so that it truly is just those people that have that trust for it. So there we go. So let's recap. The Thomas Massie on July 10th introduced some legislation, the PREP Repeal Act, which would remove some of the protections for liability that manufacturers of emergency authorized use products had enjoyed. And this legislation, despite the fact that Thomas Massie has a really poor record of getting things passed, has been supported by RFK Jr. So that does lend a little bit of weight to this. Now, it wouldn't stop the liability protections completely because manufacturers have enjoyed that protection since 1986. And the point was made that in 1986, when that National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed, there were 11 total injections that were recommended for our little people. And by 2017, that number had more than quadrupled, and it was 53, and it's probably higher today. So what we wanted to look at was not the topic of whether those are good or bad, but whether the protections to the manufacturers are going to become a thing of the past. Because I think I can address the situation like this and not get my hand slapped by the platforms I use. So we asked about that because that's really what's important. Do we want, if people have accountability, if they're held accountable for their actions, they're more careful about them. If you're held accountable for what's in your products, you're more careful with them. So is this liability protection going away? And has the stage been set for that to start happening? We definitely got a situation card of the 10 of Pentacles saying we're going to be happy about how things do end up changing, and change is upon us. We had a lot of nines show up, which say, at the end of something, change is coming your way. So we're asking about, was that going to change? And we definitely got with those nines, we got the yes about that. Now, there was also some things to understand. The availability of those products will remain. People that trust them and want to use them will. That's a free will thing. But less and less of those will be required, and more the manufacturers of those products will be held liable for ingredients and reporting and any injuries that occur. So that was good to see. Now, they're not going to be very honest about those things even in the future. And again, they're not going away. But what is going to lessen is going to be the protections that are afforded to those manufacturers, which will help to make the ingredients and the protocols more user-friendly, which is what we would want if it had to happen. So there we have it. Thomas Massie has a really poor legislation record. But in this case, whether it's his legislation or just the fact that that the original 1986 Act is going to get amended or repealed, something's going to happen, and those things are going to be changing a lot. And if certain and the protections that were afforded to those manufacturers, if it can be proven that they had falsified or done some egregious acts with the information that they um, claimed, that liability may already be going away. It's going to happen one way or the other. Those products are going to get cleaned up, and I guess the crux of the matter is knowing that they're going to be held to a standard of accountability that other professions have to answer to, and the ingredients and quality of those will improve as a result, and the requirements of those are going to be much, much less in the future. So that's good to see too. So that's it for this video and our just little mulling over the topic of that liability protection going away for the big corporations, and it looks like indeed it is. So something to anticipate. And if you, like me, believe in the power of manifestation, it's something for us to say we want to have manifest sooner, not later, and enjoyed by everyone, every good human on this plane of existence. So that's it for this video. I thank you so much for your time and attention. If you're willing to receive it, I send you love, light, and I wish you everything bright. Bye.